As I was finishing season 2 of the podcast and simultaneously observing my 15-year-old sleeping a lot later than I was comfortable with, it occurred to me that he really had no idea what the heck it is I do with this whole history of Manhattan thing, and really had no idea about the history of Manhattan and its significance on our modern world. So it was summer, and I said, you know what? I'm going to drag this kid on a little tour, and in a short period of time, I think I can make him understand it well enough. His name's Colton, but everybody calls him Coco. He's this one, actually. And actually, he's this one, too. But I can't pick him up anymore. He's grown. And yeah, I might have had to bribe him just a little bit. You see, Coco, the history of Manhattan from 1609 to 1909 is really our lost American history.
Why?
Because people don't generally understand or acknowledge that the reason people came here at all in the first place, to what we now call the United States of America, back at the start of the 1600s, was because they were fleeing religious persecution in Europe. And that's the only reason, originally. And that they were all coming here, specifically to the island of Manhattan.
Wait, fleeing where again? From England, right?
Well, yes, some from England, but they came mostly from other places.
Wait, so Dad, tell me again, who was persecuting who?
The Catholics were persecuting the Protestants.
Where?
Well, throughout most of Europe, but mostly in places that we call Belgium, the Netherlands, and France today.
But Dad, we went to Old St. Patrick's last Thanksgiving and visited our Uncle John Kelly's family crypt down in the catacombs.
Yeah.
Old St. Patrick's, the predecessor to St. Patrick's Cathedral.
That's right.
So, aren't we Catholic?
Yeah, well, we are, sort of, or we were. That's another story for another day. But the thing is that when you look at Manhattan today, it's almost impossible to get any real visual sense of this story, of how and why America actually started here. After all, the story takes place 200, 300, and 400 years ago.
What I'm saying, Dad, it's boring.
However, there's nothing like seeing it with your own eyes.
What are you talking about?
I'm going to simplify this 300-year story for you by breaking it down to 3 people, one in each of those 3 centuries, the single most influential person on this island in each century. And I'm going to take you to a significant place on Manhattan, a significant place for each of them that directly connects them to this story.
They're saying what? One person from the 1800s?
Yep.
One person from the 1700s?
Yep.
One person from the 1600s?
That's right.
Come on, Dad. 1600s? Really? What significant place?
Well, Coco, I'll tell you what. We're actually already here. All right, Coco. Now, this is not like other New York City parks. You are looking at unlandscaped, old-growth forest. Some of the trees up here are over 1,000 years old. This is the only remaining forest on the island of Manhattan. And check this out. When it all started, the entire island looked just like this.
What was he, a bear?
Well, not exactly. But he was fierce when he needed to be. And he had as much respect as a black bear, that's for sure. You remember that story about the guy who bought the island of Manhattan for $24?
No, I didn't actually. Remind me.
Well, his name was actually pronounced Pierre Minuit, but most people know him by Peter Minuit, because that was the Dutch pronunciation of his name.
Wait, Dad, weren't all these guys Dutch?
Well, no, actually they weren't. And when you listen to episode 6 and 7, you'll see that the first settlers who came here weren't Dutch at all. They were something else.
What you talking about, Walloons?
What were they?
Well, think. You've heard me say it a lot. It rhymes with balloons.
Saloon.
No, it starts with a W.
Walloons.
Walloons, which just means a French-speaking Reformed Protestant from the area that we call Belgium today, which in the 1600s was under control of the Spanish, who were part of the Holy Roman Empire. You see, Coco, Pierre Minuit was just an impoverished Protestant man being persecuted in Europe back in 1625 when he heard about the Dutch West India Company's operation that had begun sending his fellow Walloons to this new world. And he was so taken by this opportunity that he told the company that he would come here as a volunteer with the agreement that he would be permitted to trade on his own once he got here. And when he arrived in the summer of 1625, he was an independent man, really Manhattan's first freelancer, and he was not confined to the limits of New Amsterdam, which existed well below what we call Wall Street today. And he got on his horse and he rode the length of the island along the Hereway, and he came to these very woods and he began negotiating on his own with the natives who were here. And in a matter of a few months, he acquired a haul of beaver and otter furs that earned him about 7 times what the average executive in the company was making in a year. Now, this colony of New Netherland was not even 2 years old and was not off to a great start. The settlement at Albany, which they called Fort Orange, had suffered a horrible massacre when the soldiers there got mixed up in an Indian war, taking the side of the Mohicans against the Mohawks. The majority of the company soldiers were killed, and several were cannibalized by the Mohawk warriors. Not a great outcome, and not at all what the company directors back in Amsterdam wanted to hear. And the colonists down in Manhattan were terrified. And suddenly, the singular focus of the Dutch colony was defense and security. And they fired their existing governor, whose name was Willem Verhulst, and looked for the bravest and most competent person on the island to replace him. And all eyes eventually landed on this independent Walloon businessman called Pierre Minuit. In less than a year, Minuit had gone from being an unpaid volunteer to the highest-ranking official in the land. And with the safety and security of his colonists foremost in his mind, Minuit knew exactly what to do and where to go to do it. He ordered the 12 or so families living up at Fort Orange to all move down to Manhattan immediately. And then he rode back up to Hereway and came to this very hill in order to explain to the ruling native sachem in person that he no longer wanted to just purchase skins, but that he now wanted to purchase the entire island of Manhattan on behalf of his colony that he was now sachem of. And fortunately for the Dutch, Minuit had remarkable people skills, and that sachem already knew Minuit, and he liked his manners and he liked his style. And after listening to the Walloon governor's proposal, the sachem nodded his head and told Minuit yes, he had a deal. And to the natives, this island was never going to be anything other than a seasonal hunting and fishing spot. But because of Minuit's foresight and je ne sais quoi, it would eventually become the center of the universe. And it all started right here.
Wait, you said he rode up along the what?
The Hereway.
And what is that?
Well, in Dutch it meant the Lord's Way. And back then it was just a dirt Indian path. But today it's the road we just came up, called Broadway.
Broadway? Same road?
Same road.
Okay, I'll give you that. That's pretty cool. So who's next?
I mean, he's paying attention. And if you liked hearing about Pierre Minuit, make sure you come back to hear about the guy from the 18th century. And I promise you, that one's pretty cool too.